Hi, everyone, and welcome back to this next session, session number 3 in the Uplift Spiritual Summit series. And we're so delighted that you could actually join us here once again. And if you've been with us the last 2 nights, you would have experienced some amazing sessions with some fantastic insights and wisdom to help us all uplift our potential at this time. Now, on the night of our recording for this session 3, unfortunately, I had a lot of NBN problems and there were quite a few dropouts, which meant we've had to kind of re-edit the recording a little bit for tonight's session with Frances Peterson. So hopefully you'll still be able to get the true essence of the wonderful message that Frances shared and a lot of the insights that she shared in this series on change. You know, we were called to bring this Uplift Spiritual Summit together because we know there are a lot of people at the moment who are growing in their consciousness, who are expanding to new levels of being. And we were guided to create an environment where these heart-centered people could come together to learn, to grow, to connect, and to evolve. And this whole week, the energy is building up to our final day on the Saturday, where you're going to hear from some great speakers. And one of the messages that was very strong, especially when I spoke to Frances initially, was this whole essence of how do we navigate this new era of change. So in a moment, you'll see me welcome in my co-host, the lovely Ella, and also bring in Frances Peterson. So let me give you a bit of the introduction to Frances in this session tonight. So look, Frances is the founder of Healing Vibrations, and she really helps women and teens, you know, who have really found themselves at a crossroad, clarify their next steps so that they can actually move forward on their journey with greater confidence so that they can also thrive. As a holistic energy and sound practitioner, her work has really evolved over the years. And today, her divine blueprint readings and sound healing sessions are really the foundation for helping support people on their journeys to find their purpose and to harness their true soul's expression. And so today, Frances has chosen to share with us a really interesting topic that blends together her understanding of astrology as well as the Chinese elements to really share with us, you know, the essence of how can we actually embrace change in this new era of revolution. So let's get ready to welcome Frances as I bring her into the meeting, and we also welcome the lovely Ella. Okay, Ella, can you hear me okay?
Yes, I can hear you. Yes.
Okay. Do you want to say hello to everyone? Because I'm probably going to have to take a little bit of a back seat today. Lots of NBN issues. But do you want to say hello to everyone and just welcome them in tonight?
Hi, everyone. Welcome back. Welcome back. It's good to see you. I actually can't wait to see you personally, you know, on Saturday, but another few days. Look, I hope you enjoy our session, our first session with Penny Hayward, and then next session with Joe Carroll yesterday. So we are welcoming today Frances Peterson.
Yes. And let's just welcome in Frances. And
Hello.
You may want to unmute too.
Fantastic. All right. Thank you, Les. Thank you, Ella. Welcome, everyone.
I've just turned my video off. Hopefully it might help a bit. But Frances, you know, maybe you can give people a bit of a background. For those who don't know you, just maybe share a little bit about how did you get onto your spiritual path, and maybe a little bit about what modalities you're kind of using today and the type of work you do with your clients.
Yeah, beautiful. Thanks, Les. My healing, moving into the healing aspect of my work started way back when my third born child, Thomas, was 1 year old, and he was not sleeping properly. He was you know how they say if you start off with one baby and they're really good, and then from there on they can go, you know, pretty hard. So he was my third one, so he was the hard one. The second one wasn't much better, but the third one, he wouldn't sleep. So I was a young mum, working mum. I was working for a family business and having to get up so many times during the night to this child that wouldn't sleep was creating, stress within me. And I've always been interested in holistic and alternative therapies anyway. I was curious about, back in those days, had books about reflexology, the power of water, and, I'd already been to a psychic or two, so I was already embracing the spiritual side of life anyway. But then what sparked an interest in healing for me was when I lived in Monbulk at the time, which is in the Yarra Valley, and I walked up the street with my little baby in the pram, who was, of course, crying. And I walked into a New Age shop where there was a Reiki master who also taught reflexology, and she could see that I was struggling, and I said, yes, I don't know what I can do. I don't want to medicate my baby. That's something I'm not into, but I'd rather see what holistic ways I can support him. And she said, well, I'm going to be running a Reiki workshop, or, attuning people to Reiki coming up shortly. And but also I'm teaching reflexology. So just tune into yourself and see which one resonates with you. And so this was 1999. So so I chose Reiki, went and became attuned to Reiki. So Reiki 1's all about attuning to healing yourself, and then went on to be attuned to Reiki 2 a few months later. And during that time, I also was introduced to meditation. And so that's where I discovered my love for meditation. And from there on from that time, I chose to make sure that I had 20 minutes for myself every morning. Before starting with the day, I told the littlies that you need to leave mummy alone for 20 minutes, sat at the base of my bed, lit a candle, put on some meditation music, which was on cassette at those days, and started kind of connecting with guides and just allowing meditation to support me, to support my family, and to also support me in my work and all the daily aspects of my life. So it started there, and it just unfolded over the years, where I started to investigate what was the reason for why we get sick. I looked at the mind-body connection, studied with a couple of, with a naturopath in that regard, and started adding different modalities to my toolbox. And I really only started to practice Reiki and start to encourage friends and family, and then, eventually clients later on in my life when I moved on from my marriage. But that's part of the story that I'll go into as we go through tonight. So that's really where I'm at. But yeah, definitely in the last, since 2017, when I discovered how the features of our face and the patterns in our birth date can be married together to understand our innate soul mission and our true nature, and why we're here through the Chinese philosophy and Chinese medicine. That's where I just decided to make that the foundation for my healing programs, and also brought in other readings like Akashic Records readings as well to support clients, to really help them find clarity. A lot of people are confused, and mostly women and young teens who I work with. I do work with men as well, but I love to help people clarify what's going on for them, why it's going on for them, who are they really on the inside, and help them move forward on their path to their true goal, to their true purpose. And so, and then over the last year or two, sound healing as well.
Thank you for that, Frances. And hopefully you can hear me. I can see you moving quite clearly on my screen. And just before we do get into tonight, I know this topic of change has been important for you because it is a new era. But could you just give a bit of background? What is it that kind of attracted you to want to speak about this tonight? Because we're really connecting, and I know all the speakers at Uplift are connecting with messages that are new for their heart at this time. So could you just share a bit of background on why it is you're going to be speaking about what you're speaking tonight?
Yeah, because fundamentally we're all energy, and that's something that we learn when I was attuned to Reiki, for instance, discovering that we are all energy, and energy doesn't it just evolves and changes. And we're in a time of where there's a lot of energies bombarding the planet. And I've also recently become more interested in astrology as well, because I feel that there's a real cosmic reason for what goes on within us and humanity on the planet now. And it's kind of that's so above, so below kind of relationship, if that makes sense. So if we are from the cosmos, if we are that spark of God, then why are we experiencing these shifts in energy, the confusion, these physical kind of symptoms that we're experiencing that we may think is part of us, but is actually really created by the energy? So I will be looking into one of the planetary aspects that's happening right now that's really affecting humanity and will for the next 20 years. And also, because of my love of the Chinese philosophy and the 5 elements of nature, I'll be bringing in what the energy of this year also is. I'm sure a lot of people have heard about the wood dragon year. I'm not going to be talking about the wood dragon as such, but I'll be talking about the wood energy, and I'll also be talking about another correlation between the 5 elements and the fire element that's impacting the next 20 years as well. So I'm going to cover those different forms of energy, but how they all correlate, if that makes sense.
Fantastic. We can't wait for it. And it's just reminding me too, the old Indian sage, Swami Vivekananda, once said, don't wait for the winds of opportunity to change. Just simply ask yourself how you can set a better sail. And I suppose what I'm looking forward to tonight is really listening, because it's really about how can we set a better sail for moving forward with these energies. So thank you. And before we hand over to you, Francis, I'm just going to ask, Ella, did you have anything, as we talk about change, anything, a question for Francis at the moment that's coming up?
Yes, thank you. Francis, thank you very much for sharing your beautiful story about the sun and the Reiki. And I found out that a lot of women are exactly in the same position, our children bringing us to the source because we try to help them. So we're moving into spirituality, and so universe works mysterious way. And I love the way they influencing us as a mother, as a naturist. So with changes, yes, it's extremely important, but from my perception, you cannot create anything new if you do not change the circumstances, if you do not change perception, and if you do not change situations. Because if this is not going to happen, you will be creating the same thing, a little bit different perhaps, but you're not going to reach your potential. So I will actually advise you to work on this and to try change one thing once a week, probably, and bring the awareness, because if you're going to be in your routine, the change will not knock to your door, by saying. So be aware of this. Thank you.
No worries. And just back onto that point about sun brought me into the healing arts, if I might call it that. He is a Piscean, and Pisces is the sign in the zodiac that represents compassion, love, healing. So it's kind of interesting, isn't it? Yeah.
It is. Excellent. Well, what we might do, Francis, we're going to hand over to you, because I know you've got a lot to share and a lot you want to share with us, and we're going to take ourselves off the spotlight and leave you with it. And and then we'll come back at the end. And what I'll just say to people, if you do have questions, feel free to put them in the chat, and I'll try and facilitate them at the end, or we'll open up the gallery like we did last night, and hopefully there's some good questions for everyone there. All right, so let's hand over to yourself.
Thank you, Les. Thank you, Ella. And just I want you to be aware that after I share all this information, and there's a lot. There's quite a bit of information that I'll be sharing with you. If you wanted to jot down certain things, by all means, if you've got a pen and paper, but you'll get the recording as well. But it's just, I might highlight times that you might like to reflect back to in your own lifetime, because I'll be sharing what I've noticed in my own life in terms of those astrological times of change. And one thing I wanted to, and I'll also at the end be sharing just a brief sound healing meditation to kind of activate this, or to integrate all this awareness that you'll be receiving during this actual talk or presentation. The first thing I wanted to remind you is that I want you to appreciate that you are a part of the cosmic plan, and that there's no mistake that when you were born and at the time of your birth and at the precise moment, even the minute that you were born, there was a beautiful chart created in the sky that represented you, the personality that your soul chose you to be in this lifetime. It's almost like the suit that your soul put on to enter into this planet, to enter into this realm, Mother Earth, who she called you in. So don't be thinking that you're here by mistake or by error. You're here because you came to also contribute in your particular and special, unique way to the evolving changes that are taking place on the planet. So there's no mistake that we're all here at this particular time in the Earth's evolution, and that we need to take time to appreciate that, because there's moments that will come up, and I'm sure that we've all experienced them anyway. We went through a time of COVID and lockdowns, and that was quite a big dramatic change for all of us. And I'm sure that we had times where we thought, what was the point? Well, as long as we keep in mind that there is a divine reason, there's a divine plan, and we may not be aware of it while we're here in this human form, this human suit, but I'm sure on a soul level that we're very much aware. And the more that we now connect with that soul aspect of ourselves as time goes by, we'll have more of a sense that we're moving into an energy that is familiar to the soul rather than alien to it. And just be aware too that the soul doesn't experience things as either good or bad. It doesn't discriminate. The soul chooses to have all these different types of experiences: joy, happiness, passion, tragedy, loss, for its own evolvement. And so we can only hope that that we, as in our human consciousness, can develop more of a coping strategy. And that's why after this spiel, I'll be sharing this beautiful meditation to help you come back to that feeling of your soul and your heart, so that it will kind of make sense, that it'll, give you some clarity. So I've just got a couple of notes here that I will be referring to as I go through. So what I'll be sharing with you are a couple of the astrological transits and changes that are happening through this year, well, at this time this year, but also for the next 20 years. And if you're not astrologically minded, and you're not, I'm sure most people are familiar with the zodiac, and there's the 12 signs. Most of us have looked up our horoscope to see what was happening for the day. We certainly did that with newspapers in the days, but we now have our phones and access to apps, etc. But we're influenced by the planets that are in the sky, that particularly at the time of our birth, they kind of give us messages as to who we are on the inside, what we've chosen to come here to experience. Even our charts, if you ever have a chance to go, you can go to astro.com to actually put in your birth details and print off a chart for yourself to see where your sun, your moon, your rising sign, and all these planets were when you were born, which will give you an insight. If you go to sit with an astrologer, that is, that'll give you an insight into more of who you are and clarify why you experience certain emotions and why you have experienced certain changes in your life, because it's kind of already there on the chart. But then, of course, all those planets move around. They don't just stop when you were born, they continue to move. And one of the, what we call the outermost planets in the sky, which was only discovered back in 1930, was a planet called Pluto. So Pluto is it's called a dwarf planet because I think for a while the astrologers couldn't make up their mind if it was an asteroid or an actual planet. But it is the smallest planet, but it packs the biggest punch because it's known as the planet of transformation. So Pluto is a planet that rules life and death. It's about renewal and rebirth. And what it is it moves what it does, it moves around the zodiac chart, or those 12 signs on the zodiac, over a period of 248 years. So that's a long time. So it's the slowest moving planet. But it's, as I said, it packs the biggest punch and it impacts us on a very deep level. So it impacts our subconscious. It tends to bring up a bit of upheaval in our lives depending on where that Pluto planet is transiting in your chart. And it also, what it does is it connects you to your shadow self, because we've all got a shadow aspect to us. There's a part of us that we recognize ourselves and show to the external world, but then there's also a part of us that's internal or unconscious. And so what Pluto can do is activate and bring to the surface any of those unconscious beliefs and fears and doubts that we have about ourselves and life. So in January this year, Pluto moved out of the planet of Capricorn. It was sitting in Capricorn for the last 15 years, since 2008, and then moved into Aquarius in January this year, around the 20th. And it will be in the actual sign of Aquarius, which people may say is now the Age of Aquarius. Some astrologers will say that, and some will say we're not quite there yet. But Aquarius, as it's moved into Aquarius, it'll be there for the next 20 years. So many astrologers will say that they've been looking forward to this energy, because it's a change from the heavy kind of energy of Capricorn. When it was going through Capricorn, it was bringing to light aspects about life in terms of structures and powers. And Capricorn is that earth sign that is all about putting structures into place, stepping into your power, and also it's about materialism and so it's like a power down kind of energy, whereas Aquarius and the sign of Aquarius is all about the people, and it's all about the energy of more. It's about the width, it's more broad, whereas the structure of Capricorn is power down. So we may see, well, I'll go into a little bit more of the energy of what we're going to see in the next 20 years. So as I was saying, Pluto is kind of the ruler of the underworld. And what it does, it kind of brings up to the surface those things that have been hidden. And the last time it was in Aquarius, as I said, it takes 248 years to go around the zodiac. So the last time it was in Aquarius was back in 1788, and it was there till 1797. So what we know about that era is that it was a time of upheaval, rebellion, revolution. That was a time where the American Revolution took place. It was when the French Revolution took place. And interestingly enough, it's when the British settlement occurred here in Australia as well. So we know what happened there too, of course, in terms of upheaval for the Indigenous people, etc. So what we might expect during this particular 20-year period is that, so those revolutions more or less gave power to the people, if that makes sense, because the Americans were ruled by the British Empire, and the Americans didn't want to be governed by them anymore. So that there was a war, there was a revolution, and then they were, that's when the United States was formed. So what it means for us in this next 20 years is that we may start to see those structures of power down are going to start to crumble. And we may see that people will rise up. So people will choose to form communities, become unified in their desires to create change. We may see structures that we have relied on for centuries start to dismantle, so that newer and more sustainable structures can be formed. So, yeah, there is going to be a natural tendency for us to want to be less of it's all about me, which we would have been conditioned into, to this energy of wanting to be goal orientated, and it's about, you know, moving towards a goal and what can I do to fulfill my needs, my goals. We're going to more be focused on moving away from that me mentality to a we, more encompassing, community minded. What can we do? What can I do now to support us? And there'll be that natural tendency for us to want to find people that are of our vibration, are of our like-minded. So, for instance, here in this in Uplift and Telos, there is that desire to connect with like-minded peoples to actually come together and create change and sustainable change for the future. So we may also see during this next 20 years a redefining of who we decide to select or elect as leaders. We will see more diversification and also decentralization of power, so that it's not just that one or two or so many people at the top. There'll be the spread of power. More or less about us stepping into our own power, but not to overcome others, but to have a sense of our own self-power, if that makes sense. We're going to see an expansion of big ideas. We're going to see more in terms of space travel, technology, AI. We've already started to see that. Pluto moved into Aquarius for just about a month, around April last year. So we already started to see a little bit of more technology happening then. We're going to see more of an amplification of that. What it's going to do is going to force us to let go of outdated modes of living or the way that we see life. So I don't know how many of you might still have checks. We'll see that those disappearing. And I know there's the monetary system will change, whether this will be a cashless society. I know people are hanging on to cash, but that could be part of the past down the track. We don't know, but that is a great potential. There will be changes around trade and negotiation. And there may also be changes around boundaries and borders, so that people will more freely choose to move around the planet rather than stay confined in their one place. So there will be this tendency now to look at what it is we can now tap into in terms of our own talents and gifts that we can now contribute to the community at whole. And what it can also mean is that there'll be a shift in our identity in terms of who we were over the last 20, 40, for me, 62 years is going to shift and change. And we're all going to be feeling this sense of confusion about who am I now? What am I meant to be doing now? If this is a new era, which we definitely are in, because Pluto, as I said, is that planet of transformation. And it can often be that something we can't control. There will be maybe a sense of losses in our life in terms of the way life was. But it means that something has to break down and be released in order for something brand new to grow. So as I go into the 5 elements and the elements a little bit later, that'll make more sense to you. So everybody's going to experience this transformation that Pluto is going to bring in differently. So again, it all depends on where it's impacting you on your chart. And again, that will mean, having a chat to an astrologer, or you can actually, even if you get a chart for, printed off for yourself, you can Google God as well. As I say, you can type into astro.com, or you can type in, information to ask where it's impacting you. But I suggest you highly go and see an astrologer. I'm not an astrologer. I'm just a would-be astrologer student who's just fascinated and loves the topic of the cosmos and the stars. And my love for astrology started back in 2005 when I was trying to make a decision about whether to stay in my marriage or to go. And an astrologer highlighted for me the decision that I would eventually make, which has seen me, transition into the role that I chose as a healer, and where I am now. It's just all part of destiny, really. So, and if you need to, or you wanted to access good astrologers, I have a couple of names. So, so it's all about truth. And it is about exposing and bringing to light your truth. And just know it is a time of rebirth. And allow yourself to experience the grief or sadness of who you thought you were, to let go of that, and embrace the excitement of who you are now becoming. That would be my message to you. So I want to go over times in, not about Pluto. I'm going to go into another aspect actually, but just be aware that there's going to be a lighter energy in terms of Aquarius. As I said, Capricorn was a heavy top-down type of energy. It was very grounded, and we saw amazing changes and innovations come through during the last 20 years. By all means, we saw the internet, and we saw the web, and we saw Facebook, and we saw social media. We saw all these wonderful things, and they certainly will be more enhanced, and we'll see more of that during the Aquarian time. But it's also it's about embracing the changes that are coming, and just knowing that this time during this next 20 years, particularly in terms of Pluto, is a time where, when you look back 20 years later and look back at yourself from today and now, you'll see the growth that you've experienced, and you applaud yourself, hopefully. But there's another planetary aspect that I wanted to touch on now, because we're about to just enter it. And that's what we call the eclipse season. Every 1.5 years, astrologers will say that the north and the south nodes of the moon shift into different signs. And then the eclipses are the time when, at the new moon and the full moon, they activate the changes of that north and that south node. I'll go into that a little bit better because, as I said, I'm a wannabe astrologer, but in terms of the terminology, I'm still trying to master the language. So when we talk about eclipses, which are kind of like full moons and new moons on steroids, eclipses last around 1.5 years through one sign, and they occur every 9 years, like in 9-year intervals. So each eclipse series tells a unique story that's linked to our destiny, our karma, and our legacy, which then unfolds over time. So eclipses occur when the moon links up with the south and the north nodes, which are the boundaries of its orbit. So all eclipses, so we've got a lunar eclipse coming up on the 26th of March, so I think that's around a week and a bit away. All eclipses bring about radical, catalytic, life-altering changes. So they really are about fate and destiny. And it's about fate and destiny taking over the cosmos. It's almost like the cosmos takes over, and you don't, you just have to play along, basically. So we all go through a major life change during an eclipse. It's kind of like a metamorphosis. And why is that? Well, it's because thanks to that north and the south nodes of the moon, they're linked to our destiny. So astrologers will say that eclipses speed up time and they bring unavoidable changes into our life, and they accelerate fated events, and they could be really good, positive events. And then what they do in turn is shake up our current reality, because we will have a perspective of our lives. And as Ella was mentioning earlier, we can't really embrace change unless we change the way we're thinking. So eclipses can kind of radically change our perspective. So eclipses are all about breaking patterns and starting all anew. So and what's relevant about this eclipse we're into is that it's the end of a particular cycle. So it's going to force us to ask questions as to how has my past experience influenced my present day realities? What have I overcome? What have I learned? And how will I continue to heal through this time that we're moving forward? So in July last year, the north and the south nodes moved into the signs of Aries and Libra. So in that particular cycle that we're currently in, if I can just try and explain, if you see a chart, if you go to look at your chart, for instance, you'll see that Aries is kind of opposite Libra. And so these two signs mean Aries is the first sign of the horoscope, so it relates to the me or I am aspect of ourselves. It's kind of when we're born, that's we're learning to find out about ourselves. It's about growth and understanding. Okay, if I put that foot forward and that foot forward, that's how I get moving. It's learning about the self. Libra, on the other hand, is about the we aspect. It's about partnerships and relationships. So it's about how do I now know myself, but in connection with others in relationships. So the North Node now is in Aries, which is about the me aspect, and the South Node is in Libra. Now, hopefully I've still got you here. The North Node is our destiny. It's our fate. It's where we're moving towards. It's the energy of what we're moving towards in terms of what do I need now for myself? What do I need to support myself as I move forward? What do I need to learn about myself in order for me to move forward on my, towards my destiny? The Libra side, or the South side, or the South Node in Libra means what do I need to now let go of in terms of my relationships? And it's not to say to let go of relationships, but to rather let go of the people pleasing or allowing your relationships to define who you are. So it's kind of it's letting go of more of that me in order to move towards it's not letting go of that me in this terminology, but it is highlighting where we're moving away from attachments, that Libra energy, and moving towards actualizing ourselves, if that makes sense. So it's about bravely moving in the direction that you need to discover on your own. So it's about developing self-knowledge, self-understanding, being more self-reliant, more self-responsible, relinquishing that need to people please in your relationships. And it's about also sharing what's relevant in your heart, and to stand in your power and to be honest with yourself. And there's the South Node in Libra, which is the energy that we're moving away from, is about purging what we've outgrown, and also recognizing that there's parts of us that transmute and change or die off, and to now merge, not so much feel we need to merge with another in order to feel complete, but rather maybe to merge with that part of yourself that is your soul, your spirit. So you see yourself more in a relationship or partnership with your spirit. And that Libra energy is also about peace, harmony, and beauty. So it's still appreciating those qualities, but recognizing that that's part of who you are, and bringing that more to light rather than feeling that you have to find that in your relationships or partnerships. So it's about balance, but also bringing that balance to yourself. So we're going to experience a full moon in Libra on the 26th of March, and that will be the lunar eclipse that we'll experience. So that's activating the South Node. And so what happens in a lunar eclipse is when the Earth will cast its shadow on the moon, and it's like a full moon on steroids, as they say. So what it means is it brings along, it kind of initiates an intense upgrade. And we may find that during this lunar eclipse in a week or so, the areas where we've given away our power and placed the needs of others before our own. So you might feel inspired to speak up for yourself and to assert your own needs at this time. So just recognise that energy that might come in. And on the 8th of April, then we'll experience a new moon in Aries, and that will be what we call a total solar eclipse. And that will be activating that North Node. So that North Node is the destiny where we're heading towards. So that means that the new moon, this happens when the new moon passes between the sun and the earth and blocking out the sun's light. And then it temporarily turns day into night. We won't actually see that here in Australia. I think we saw it last year or the year before, but certainly in America, North and South America, and the Pacific Ocean will see that. That eclipse is right kind of in a line across those places, and there's usually sparks some kind of change in the places where you can see it. So eclipses move in cycles of 9 years. So if we were to look back into the series of 9 years, if I go back to April 1986 to November 1987, when the South Node was in Libra, which is what it's going to be now, I look back to that part of my history, and I remember that was when I built a house with my partner, then became engaged and got married 6 months later. I moved away from being single, so it was moving away from family as such, and then creating a kind of a whole new identity, if that makes sense, being a wife and then a mother and a homeowner. So that was the growth that I experienced then. There was a North Node in Libra in August 1995 to 1997. So that was a time when my husband and I were actively looking for another property. And that was also when I felt the stirrings of wanting a third child, which then ended up being the third child that helped me propel me into my healing journey. And then the one that's impacted me, if I look back to that 2004 and 2006, when the South Node was in Libra again, similar to the South Node in Libra now. I then separated from my husband in April 2005. I moved into a rental with my 3 children in January 2006, and then started my healing business in earnest, and started to forge this new identity, single mum and entrepreneur, business owner, etc. So that's what I'm meaning, that your identity can change during these eclipses. So different things at different times can be reflected if we look back at the cycle. Now, I'm going to move, if I look at this particular eclipse that's happening now, which this particular eclipse in the South Node in Libra will be from July 2023 to around January, maybe a little bit after, in 2025, which is impacting all of us. But for me, it sees me now being on my own again, selling my house, wanting to move to the coast, and moving away from maybe the social or professional identity that I've created for myself over these since 2005, or during that eclipse back in 2004-5. And now I'm rebranding myself. I created Healing Vibrations, or my business was branded as Healing Vibrations, and now I'm moving into a new identity and rebranding to the Wise Oracle. So that's probably why you'll see the change in terms of my business name. So it's kind of letting go of those old patterns, old identity, maybe even releasing some of the work that I've done and now creating new forms of healing. So that's what's been happening for me. So maybe look at in terms of those times yourself, what changed for you? Because as I said, eclipses create massive change. I'm going to quickly go into the Chinese metaphysics in terms of what's happening briefly with us this year in terms of the elements, and then I'll also quickly show you what's going to be happening over the next 20 years in terms of the 5 elements as well. So this year, you may have heard that we're under the influence of the wood dragon. Now, there's different kind of branches of Chinese metaphysics in terms of astrology. I don't follow so much the animal side of it. I follow more the elements. And so what I know about this year in terms of being a wood element year, in a system called 9-star key, which is a very ancient divination system, about 3,000 to 7,000 years old, I believe. This wood element is a pattern that relates to the tree. So if we were to give an image of wood element, it's about the tree energy. It's about the seed in the ground bursting through the earth, becoming a tree. It knows within it that it has the plan to become a tree. So wood element is all about growth and change, but it's also about inspiring hope. And in this particular cycle, in terms of Chinese medicine, we move in cycles of 9 years throughout our life. So we're in the 3rd year of a 9-year cycle. So this is definitely a year of change and growth. We're going to see advances again from the Chinese metaphysics side of things, advances in space exploration, computer technology. We may also see food and agriculture undergoing changes, and we may see some new guidelines coming into place in terms of ultra-processed foods, and hopefully they'll cut back on that because our foods are definitely over-processed. Now, Alex Jacks is a 9-star key expert who I learned with last year, and he believes that President Biden is in a better position to win the US election later on this year, if there is one. But again, that all depends on his health, because his health is not 100%. But according to his predictions, that's a possibility. With this tree energy or this wood energy, it also, as I said, it's here to inspire hope and change. So he does see that there's a potential for peace with the war ceasing in Gaza. However, in terms of President Putin, he sees that he will have an up and down year this year, but there'll be no escalation in that war there, but kind of more like a continuation or maybe even a stalemate. So it's kind of watch this space. In terms of the wood element, it is about, there's an emotion that relates to each of the elements of nature, and the wood element or the tree energy has an emotion that we could call frustration and anger. So this is an energy that we may all experience more of this year. As I said, wood element is about that seed having to break through the earth to become a tree. So there's a certain amount of force or drive for it to do that. So in Chinese medicine, they would say that there's a healthy type of anger, and that gives us that rocket booster to move forward. So wood element is all about moving forward, wanting to or needing to overcome obstacles. So we might find in our lives this year where we're trying to create change, we may have to get over or overcome obstacles, and there may be an emotion of frustration or anger that we would just naturally feel. And I will always say to my clients who I know have got this energy either in their birth date or in the features of their face, I'll say to them, go out into nature, go for a run, go and be exposed to the color green, because that's the color that relates to wood element, or use your voice, interestingly enough, because in each of the elements there's a sound that relates to each of them. So the shout is actually the sound for wood element. So if you feel angry and you need to release that tension, go in your car, go for a drive and just have a good old yell, because nobody else can hear you as long as you're in the car by yourself, or either in a room in your house where you can just let go, or otherwise sing. Just allow yourself to sing, and because that's using your voice, because it's that up and out kind of energy represented by the tree. And wood element is also the energy of spring. So think about spring, which when we see a lot of growth out in nature, we're heading into autumn, but I believe over in the States at the moment, they're heading into spring. So it's that sense of enthusiasm and optimism as well that we may naturally also experience. I know we're heading into, hopefully I won't go over too long. Les, I don't know if you can hear me, but
Yes, you're doing okay, Frances. So that's good. So you've still got some time there and to get into your meditation too.
Correct. I want to quickly just touch on also the next 20-year period in according to Chinese metaphysics as well, and feng shui, which the Chinese metaphysics also follows the solar and the lunar calendar. So not unlike astrology. So in terms, they believe that we move in periods of 180 years. So at the moment, we are now have entered into what we call the period 9, or the last 20-year cycle of a 180-year period. So that means it's an end of a cycle. Nonetheless, we're at the start of that 20-year period. So that 180-year period started in 1864. So for the next 20 years till 2044, we're going to see some lots of changes again. And now these also highlight changes we will see astrologically in terms of Pluto moving into Aquarius, and also, in terms of eclipses and things like that. So fire element is the element that relates to living from the heart. The emotion that relates to fire element is joy and love. And we're going to feel the energy more of promoting more of ourselves, or allowing more self-expression. So there's going to be a desire to live from the heart, to experience more passion and romance. Fire elements about innovation, information and technology. So there's that kind of similarity. Fire element is also, if you look at a fire and you see the flickering flame, it can be quite dramatic. Sometimes the sparks, fly high, and sometimes they're quite low. So there's certain parts that rule the body in terms of fire element, and eyes are one of them. So we may tend to look at things during these next 20 years, which can cause a bit of disillusion. Because the flickering flame moves and it's not stable. So the energy may sometimes feel not quite stable either. It's going to be a quick energy that we'll be experiencing. And at its essence, fire element's all about wanting to be seen and to be appreciated and to be loved. So we're going to see more people stepping up into the limelight, so to speak. And if that energy is coming from the soul, a great desire to express from the soul, that's going to be a wonderful thing. So we're going to see more people then sharing from their hearts, more of their innate gifts and talents to support humanity. So that kind of matches with our Pluto and Aquarius energy. It's also an energy that's, it's kind of a mystical energy too. There's a really spiritual link to the fire element. So our perspectives will kind of change. We'll kind of look at things differently. And if we were to give it a bit of an image for what this fire energy is like, it would be similar to the phoenix rising. We are going to kind of take on, maybe we might see more dramatic, people being a bit more dramatic. When I see people in the limelight, when we see actors and entertainers, they have a lot of what we call fire element in their nature. It's that desire to, express that a part of themselves. So we're going to see more of that, and you may actually experience a desire to be more of that too. That we'll see more kindness and compassion during this 20-year period. In Chinese medicine, they say that our consciousness resides in the heart, and fire elements rules the heart, it rules the eyes, it rules the small intestine, it rules, it rules touch. There's so many aspects to ourselves that it rules. So I believe it's a time where we're going to experience more of the 5D reality, where 3D reality is what we're experiencing now, but 5D is that high dimension, and that high dimension of energy is compassionate, and it does come from the heart. So we will see that. And another just thing to be aware of, we're going to see more middle-aged women moving into powerful positions of leadership in the next 20 years. And we may see that around the age of 35 to 55, but I'm hoping it goes a bit over that to the 60s, because that's where I'm at. We're going to see more discoveries in terms of solar systems. We're going to see, we'll probably see rockets and UFOs and ETs and more aliens. That's just going to be part of this. It's kind of that up and looking up energy. We will probably see flying taxis or Ubers. I think they're talking about flying Ubers. They're coming to Melbourne as early as 2026. And industries that you might want to be interested in, if you're working and you're in a business or a career, the industries that's really going to flourish in the next 20 years are anything to do with beauty, health and wellness, and spirituality. So I know there's a number of us that are kind of in those areas. As I said, innovation in technology. Unfortunately, it's also about the eye. So we're going to see more in terms of drones and, those cameras at the checkouts at Coles and what have you, surveillance cameras and things like that. But we'll also see more in terms of fire element is all about communication. It's fundamentally about communicating heart to heart. So in terms of communication, we're going to see more in terms of the internet, social media, AI. There'll be new types of social media and internet coming online too, not just the ones that we're relying on now. For anybody that's in business or is an entrepreneur, you might, in order to be successful over the next 20 years, it's important for you to be seen. So you'll, to be showing up on the internet, videos, podcasts, YouTube, or even working online. We may see people working online more. So there's a lot of other stuff. I'm going to skip all that. One thing I want you to be aware of in this next 20 years, and we're already seeing it, is that with technology taking over as much as it is and has, our young people are experiencing touch less and less. And their form of communication tends to be by texting or, gaming or whatever else. It's going to be important for us to support our children and our grandchildren to ground themselves during this very fast energy that we're going to experience, to help them feel grounded and to feel the gentleness of touch. That's going to be so important. And that's why, the healing modalities and industries will really take off. The beauty industry will take off too, unfortunately, in terms of more and more people are wanting to stay younger looking, and there will be good advancements, hopefully positive ones, rather than the artificial and fake stuff that a lot of the young folk are using now. So in terms of mental health, fire element is about joy, passion, and love. And so there will be a rise in terms of mental health because a fire element relates to the brain, so the functioning of the brain. So it's important for us to realise we need to support those that we know are experiencing confusion, depression, anger. Those are things that are opposite to love and passion and joy. So it would be important to really support our young people and our newer generations that are coming, who are living in this really very technological age. So hopefully that I haven't overwhelmed you with all that information, but I just feel it's interesting to know the energies that are impacting us and why we need to embrace change, because our soul is demanding it. We, as on a conscious level, a physical human conscious level, may not be totally aware of why we have to go through these massive changes, but the soul knows. And I would like to support you now in choosing to embrace the beautiful energy of joy, love and passion, which the fire element will encourage us to experience. That beautiful energy of Pluto and Aquarius, which is all about community, unity, and what we can do for the common good of all rather than for just the self. And to help support you during this next eclipse season that we're entering, where you're redefining who you actually are. So before I lose my voice, I think we better start. So I'd like you to all kind of sit back where you're sitting. I'm going to hope that that the sounds of my bowls that I've got around me here, that they'll come through for you. And I've got other little instruments as well. So if you'd like to sit back and relax and gently close your eyes. And allow yourself now to find yourself as a small child, embracing the energy of that curiosity and enthusiasm that a child naturally has. And imagine that you are outside right now on a beautiful sunny day, sitting on the grass, sitting cross-legged as this child who's just excitedly looking out around you at beautiful nature, the green grass, the flowers blooming in the distance, the tall trees with the lush leaves, and the warmth of the sun shining down on you, feeding that beautiful spirit and the beautiful heart within it. And as you gaze around you in this beautiful place, it's almost like there's a memory of knowing that you've been here before. You've been in this energy of enthusiasm, excitement, passion, joy, and also the connection to your own spirit, which is all of those things. So feel into that energy now. And feel into the energy of your heart. And allow yourself to imagine now beautiful sparks of energy sparking out from your heart chakra, and those beautiful sparks of light enter into the atmosphere around you, and it's almost like you are the center of a beautiful flame on a candle, not so much experiencing the heat of that, but experiencing the glow of that. And feel now into the base of your body, feel into the base of your spine, and feel your body connecting to the earth, and feel yourself supported by this beautiful ground that you're sitting on. And allow Mother Earth now to hold you in her beautiful hand, embracing you, supporting you, loving you, nurturing you. And feel the energy drawing up from your spine, merging with your heart. Be aware as you merge these two energies of the love and support of Mother Earth, who brought you into this dimension to experience life here. That she is supporting you to experience more of the love, the joy, and the passion for life that is your birthright. A child doesn't fear what it doesn't know. It just is open, excited, surprised, and joyful in every new experience that comes its way. So allow yourself now to be open to experience that childlike joy. That childlike passion, enthusiasm, and awareness of growth and change. The earth is supporting you and loving you every step of the way. And the cosmos, with all its glittering stars, each with its own energy and quality, are beaming their energies down into you, awakening you to your fullest potential, the reason why you're here, and why it is time now to embrace change, newness, new beginnings, new life, your new destiny, fated meetings, and your new identity. So with a lightness in your heart, a feeling of joy, renewed passion and enthusiasm, bring your awareness now back to your breath, back to the lightness that you feel in your body. And as you gently open your eyes, allow a beautiful smile to touch your lips and allow the energy of your beautiful heart to be expressed on your face. And know that you're now initiated into shining your light. So, I hope you all enjoyed that. I hope the sounds came through okay. So, thank you for all listening to me and allowing
Thank
me.
you. Thank you very much, Frances. That was wonderful.
You're welcome.
Yes. And look, thank you for sharing your wonderful gift, especially the sound. And we'll talk about that a little later, because it was just a beautiful experience to bring in the instruments, to bring in the sound. And I could really hear the voice of your guide coming in very strongly there too, which I know you'll connect with when you listen back to the recording. But yeah, thank you for sharing tonight. And before we kind of swap over to a bit of question and answer before we finish up, I do just want to acknowledge you, because I feel part of what you've shared is it's about bringing your gifts together, your abilities. I know you're someone who has a passion for the Chinese medicine and the elements, but as well as the astrology and the healing. And I kind of feel spirit are working with you to bring all of that together into your own body of work. And maybe this is a bigger part of the wise oracle. But what it is, I think, is also an affirmation to everyone here tonight is spirit calls us to connect with our passions and what interests us. And sometimes we need to follow that chi or energy, because that will lead us to what we're really meant to be doing and the energy we're meant to be following. So I think it was a great example of that tonight. So thank you for that, Frances.
You're most welcome.